Hello, and welcome. What is the price of seeing something that no one has ever seen before? Is that truth worth your freedom? Is it worth your honor? Tonight we tell the story of a man who looked through a lens and saw a new cosmos, was brought to his knees by an old world for daring to speak of it. Before we begin that story, if you enjoy these quiet journeys into the past, a simple like and a subscription is always welcome. Feel free to also let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight. Now, it's time to let the day fade away. Dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin. Our story begins in the spring of the year 1632. It's not in a dark dungeon or a grim courtroom, but in a sun-drenched villa in the hills of Arcetri, overlooking the magnificent city of Florence. Here, an old man, his health failing, but his mind as sharp as ever, holds a newly printed book in his hands. The man is Galileo Galilei, and the book is his life's work, his masterpiece. He is, at this moment, the most famous and celebrated scientist in all of Europe, and he is basking in the warm glow of his own intellectual triumph. You are Galileo. You are nearly 70 years old. Your beard is white. Your body is racked with the pains of arthritis. But your eyes, the same eyes that have peered through a telescope and seen the mountains of the moon, the phases of Venus, and the 4 moons circling Jupiter, are still bright with a fierce, challenging intelligence. The book you hold is titled Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems. For 30 years, you have been a believer in the scandalous and beautiful theory of the Polish astronomer Nicolaus Copernicus, the theory that the Earth is not the center of the universe, but is a simple planet circling the sun. And for 30 years you have been in a long, careful, and often dangerous dance with the authority of the Catholic Church, which holds, as an article of faith, that the earth is stationary, the unmoving center of God's creation. 16 years ago, in 1616, you were formally warned by the Inquisition not to hold or defend the Copernican doctrine. Now, with this book, you believe you have found a way to win the argument without technically breaking the letter of that injunction. You have not written a dry scientific treatise. You have written a lively, witty, and accessible dialogue in the Italian language, a conversation between 3 men. There is Salviati, a brilliant Florentine academic, who argues, with your own powerful logic and evidence for the Copernican, sun-centered model. There is Sagredo, a wise and open-minded nobleman who listens to the arguments and is slowly won over. And there is Simplicio, a stubborn, slightly dim-witted philosopher who clings to the old, earth-centered Ptolemaic system, using the traditional arguments of Aristotle and the Church. You believe you have been clever. The book has been officially licensed by the Church's own censors. You have presented the Copernican theory as a mere hypothesis, but anyone who reads the book can see the truth. Salviati's arguments are brilliant and unassailable. Simplicio's arguments are consistently shown to be foolish and circular. You have not just defended Copernicus. You have made the old worldview look ridiculous. You send copies of your masterpiece to your patrons, to the Grand Duke of Tuscany, to cardinals and scholars across Europe. The initial reception is one of overwhelming praise. You have written a bestseller, a book that is being read and debated not just by astronomers, but by every educated person in Italy. You have, you believe, won, but you have made a terrible and fatal miscalculation. You have underestimated the power of your enemies, and you have fatally misjudged the vanity of your most powerful friend. In Rome, the book is being read with a cold and growing fury. Your academic rivals, the Jesuit astronomers and the Aristotelian philosophers whose ideas you have so publicly dismantled, begin to conspire against you. They whisper in the halls of the Vatican, pointing out the most dangerous passages of your book, framing your scientific arguments as a direct attack on the authority of the Holy Scripture itself, and they find a powerful and receptive ear. The Pope, Urban VIII, was once your friend, your patron, a fellow intellectual who admired your work. But as he reads the dialogue, his friendship turns to a cold, humiliated rage. He sees that the character of Simplicio, the foolish defender of the Church's doctrine, is made to use some of the Pope's own personal arguments in his losing battle. He believes you have deliberately and publicly caricatured him, the vicar of Christ, as a simpleton. The intellectual debate has just become a personal insult, and the Pope's wounded pride will be your undoing. The backlash is swift and absolute. In the summer of 1632, news reaches your villa that the sale of your book has been suspended. Commission is formed in Rome to re-examine it, not for its scientific merits, but for its theological errors. Then, in the autumn, the formal summons arrives. It is a letter delivered by a papal courier. It bears the seal of the Holy Office of the Inquisition. You read the letter, your hands trembling. You Galileo Galilei, member of the prestigious Linnean Academy, personal philosopher to the Grand Duke of Tuscany, the most famous scientist of your age, are being formally summoned to Rome. You are to present yourself before the Commissary General of the Holy Inquisition, to be tried on a vehement suspicion of heresy. The news is a devastating blow. You are an old man. You are sick with a dozen ailments. The journey from Florence to Rome is a long, arduous, and dangerous one, especially in the winter. Your friends and your powerful patron, the Grand Duke, try to intervene, writing letters on your behalf, attesting to your poor health and your loyalty to the Church, but the Pope is unmovable. Your presence is demanded. The triumph of the spring has turned to the terror of the autumn. The book that was to be your crowning achievement has become your indictment. You look at the summons, at the cold, legalistic language, and you understand that you are not being invited to a scientific debate. You are being called to answer for a crime. You are leaving the safe, sunlit world of your Florentine villa, and you are about to enter the dark, silent, and labyrinthine world of the Roman Inquisition. The ordeal of the scientific heretic has begun. The winter of 1633 is a harsh one. For you, Galileo, it is the winter of your deepest dread. You are 70 years old, and your body is a fragile vessel of aches and fevers. The journey from your home in Florence to the city of Rome is an arduous one at the best of time. A long and bone-jarring trip by horse-drawn litter over rough and poorly maintained roads. To make such a journey in the cold and the damp of winter is a form of torture in itself. Your physicians attest that you are too sick to travel, that such a journey could kill you. The Grand Duke of Tuscany, your powerful patron, sends pleading letters to Rome on your behalf, but the Holy Office is implacable. The Pope's anger has made them deaf to any appeal. You are commanded to come, and if you cannot travel of your own accord, they will send their own men to fetch you, in chains if necessary. And so, with a heavy and fearful heart, you begin the journey. The world outside, the swaying curtains of your litter, is a bleak, wintry landscape. The constant jolting motion is an agony for your arthritic joints. But the physical discomfort is nothing compared to the psychological torment of the journey. You are not a traveler on a great adventure. You are a prisoner being delivered to his own trial. Your journey is made even more miserable by the great plague that is sweeping through Italy. At the border of the Papal States, your litter is halted. You are forced to spend the next 20 days in quarantine in a small, miserable, and cold outpost, your anxiety and your fear growing with every passing empty day. Finally, in the middle of February, after a journey that has taken nearly a month, you arrive at the gates of Rome. You enter the great ancient city not as a celebrated guest as you have so many times before, but as an accused heretic, your arrival a thing of quiet shame. You are not, however, thrown into a dark dungeon. The Inquisition is a sophisticated institution, and its methods are often subtle. You are a man of international fame, a friend of the Grand Duke, and you must be handled with a certain delicacy. You are ordered to confine yourself to the magnificent Villa Medici, the embassy of the Tuscan state. It is a beautiful prison, a gilded cage. You are given a suite of fine rooms. You are attended by the ambassador's own servants, and you can walk in the villa's beautiful gardens. But you are a prisoner. You are forbidden to leave the grounds. You are forbidden to receive visitors without the express permission of the Holy Office. And you are watched constantly by the quiet, observant eyes of the Inquisition's agents. The true torment of this period is the waiting. The Holy Office does not rush. It is a great, slow, and grinding bureaucratic machine, and it will proceed at its own deliberate pace. The days turn into weeks. The weeks turn into 2 long, silent months. We're left entirely alone with your own thoughts, your own fears, and your own uncertainty. This is a deliberate and brilliant form of psychological warfare. The long, silent wait is designed to break your spirit, to fill you with a growing, nameless dread, to make you so anxious for the process to begin and end that your will to resist is already eroded. Before the first question is even asked, your health suffers. Your physical ailments are worsened by your mental anguish. You spend your days writing long, desperate letters to your beloved daughter, Sister Maria Celeste, a nun in a convent near Florence. Her letters, full of prayers and quiet encouragement, are your only comfort in this lonely, anxious limbo. You try to prepare your defense, to gather your scientific arguments, but you have a growing, terrible suspicion that the arguments of science, the evidence of your own telescope, will be of no use in the trial to come. Finally, in the middle of April, the summons arrives. A quiet, black-robed official from the Holy Office comes to the villa. You, Galileo Galilei, are to present yourself the next morning at the Dominican convent of Santa Maria sopra Minerva to face your first formal interrogation. That evening, you do not sleep. You sit by the window of your luxurious room, looking out over the moonlit rooftops of Rome. You are an old man. You are sick. You are about to face the most powerful and most feared institution in the Christian world. You have spent your life in a fearless pursuit of the truth, of the language in which the universe is written. And now you are to be put on trial for what you have found. The long, quiet, and torturous wait is over. The formal ordeal is about to begin. The morning of your first interrogation arrives. You are escorted from the Tuscan embassy and led through the streets of Rome to the Dominican convent of Santa Maria sopra Minerva. It is not a grim military fortress like the prisons you have heard of in Spain. It is a place of scholarly and religious power, a labyrinth of quiet cloisters, libraries, and austere, vaulted chambers. The air is still and cool, and smells of old books, beeswax, and the faint, sweet scent of incense. The only sounds are the soft scuff of the friar's sandals on the stone floors and the distant melodic sound of a choir chanting. It is a place of profound and intimidating quiet. You are not led to a dungeon. You are brought to a formal chapter house, a large, sober room that serves as the Inquisitor's courtroom. A great dark crucifix hangs on one wall. They are not the ignorant, superstitious fanatics you might have feared. They are the church's intellectual elite, skilled lawyers, expert theologians, and powerful cardinals, led by the Commissary General of the Inquisition, Father Vincenzo Maculani. They are intelligent, educated, and utterly certain of their own righteousness. A scribe sits at a small desk, his quill poised, ready to record every word. You are given a simple stool to sit on, and the first audience begins. The Inquisitor, Maculani, begins the questioning. His voice is calm, formal, and surprisingly gentle. He does not ask you about the sun or the earth. He does not ask you about your telescope. He asks you about the past. Signor Galilei, he begins. Tell us of the events of the year 1616. Tell us of your audience with the most eminent Cardinal Bellarmine. You are taken aback. You had spent the past months preparing a defense of your science, of your astronomical observations, but they are not interested in the moons of Jupiter. You're interested in a conversation that happened 17 years ago. You recount the events as you remember them. You tell them how Cardinal Bellarmine, a respected and learned man, had informed you of the Holy Office's decision to declare the Copernican theory formally heretical. You tell them that he had warned you, as a good son of the Church, to abandon this condemned opinion. The Inquisitor listens patiently, nodding. Ah! And was that all, Signor Galilei? Was there no other, more specific, more personal command given to you on that day? No, Father. You say, I was simply informed of the general decree. It is at this moment that the trap, which has been quietly waiting for you for 17 years, is finally sprung. The Inquisitor gives a signal to a clerk who produces a document from a leather portfolio. We have here, the Inquisitor says, his voice still perfectly calm, the official minutes of that meeting from the archives of the Holy Office. Allow me to read it to you. He reads from the document, his voice a flat bureaucratic drone. The document states that on that day in 1616, the Commissary General of the Inquisition, in the presence of witnesses, delivered a specific personal injunction to you, Galileo Galilei. It states that you were commanded to relinquish completely the set opinion that the sun is the center of the world and immovable, and that the earth moves, nor henceforth to hold, teach, or defend it in any way whatsoever, either orally or in writing. The words hang in the silent room. In any way whatsoever, a cold, sickening dread washes over you. This is not what you remember. The warning you received was a general one. This document describes a specific, legally binding, and personal command that is far more restrictive. You did not believe you were holding or defending the Copernican theory in your book. You were exploring it as a hypothesis. But this document, with its damning, all-encompassing phrase "in any way whatsoever," makes your entire dialogue a direct, blatant, and undeniable act of disobedience. This is not correct. You stammer, your mind reeling. I have my own record of that day, certificate given to me by the late Cardinal Bellarmine himself, which states only that I was not to hold or defend the opinion. We are aware of your certificate, the Inquisitor says calmly, But this is the official record of the Holy Office. It is the sworn testimony of the officials of this sacred tribunal. Are you suggesting that these holy men have lied? Are you suggesting that the records of the Inquisition are a forgery? You look at their cold, expectant faces. You understand the impossibility of your situation. It is your word, the word of an old, sick, and now accused man, against an official document from the unassailable archives of the Holy Office itself. In this room, the truth is not what happened. The truth is what is written down in their ledgers. The interrogation is over for the day. You are escorted back to your place of confinement, but you are a changed man. You came to Rome prepared for a great battle of ideas, a debate between the evidence of the heavens and the dogmas of the earth. But you have discovered that you are not in such a battle. You are in a different kind of fight entirely. You're in a quiet, legalistic, and bureaucratic knife fight. Your opponent has just revealed that he has been holding the knife to your throat for 17 years, waiting for you to make a single, false move. The summons has led you not to a debate, but to a perfect, inescapable trap. Your ordeal is not to be about science. It is to be about a single, simple, and now seemingly undeniable act of disobedience. You return from your first interrogation to the gilded cage of the Tuscan embassy, but the comfort of the place has vanished. The beautiful gardens, the fine food, the soft bed, they are all a meaningless facade. Your mind is a tempest. The document they produced, the alleged personal injunction from 1616, has changed everything. You have been caught in a legal trap, and you have no idea how to escape it. After this first audience, your situation changes. You are informed that your confinement at the embassy is over. For a fleeting, hopeful moment, you think you might be allowed to return to Florence, but the reality is the opposite. You are moved from the embassy to the apartments of the Inquisitor himself, within the walls of the Holy Office. While it is still not a dungeon, you are given a servant and your meals are adequate. Is a significant and terrifying escalation. You are now living in the very heart of the machine that is judging you. You are under the direct 24-hour-a-day control and surveillance of your prosecutor. The psychological pressure is immense. Every conversation is suspect. Every quiet moment is filled with the knowledge that you are a prisoner in your judge's own house. Weeks pass. The Inquisition, with its deliberate, grinding pace, leaves you in this state of anxious confinement. It is a time for you to reflect on the hopelessness of your situation, for your resolve to soften. Finally, you are summoned for your second interrogation. You have had weeks to think, to agonize over the legal trap of the 1616 injunction. You have decided on a new strategy. You cannot win a battle of documents with the Holy Office. So, you must argue that your book, the dialogue, does not actually violate the command. You must argue that you did not hold, teach, or defend the Copernican theory. You enter the same austere interrogation chamber, same calm. Severe faces of the inquisitors are there to greet you. The scribe is ready. The Commissary General Maculani begins. We have given you time to examine your conscience. Signor Galilei, are you now ready to admit to your disobedience? Father, you begin, your voice steady, your argument carefully prepared. My intention in writing the dialogue was not to defend the condemned opinion of Copernicus. It was to present both the Ptolemaic and the Copernican systems, show the arguments on both sides as a purely intellectual hypothesis. You continue explaining the structure of your book. You argue that you were simply presenting a debate, a dialogue, and that if the arguments for the Copernican side seem stronger, It is only a reflection of the intellectual power of those arguments, not a sign of your own personal advocacy. It is a brilliant, if somewhat disingenuous, legal argument. The inquisitor listens patiently, his fingertips steepled before him. He lets you finish. When you are done, he gives a small, thin smile. Your intentions are a matter for you and your confessor, he says, his voice dangerously smooth. We, however, are concerned with the book that you have written. Let us examine it together, shall we? He opens a copy of your dialogue. You have 3 characters, he says. There is Salviati, who argues for the new Copernican theory, and there is Simplicio, who argues for the old Ptolemaic theory, the position of Aristotle in the Holy Church. Is that correct? Yes, Father, you say. And yet the inquisitor continues. Throughout this entire book of some 400 pages, is it not true that Simplicio, the defender of the Church's position, is consistently portrayed as a fool? Is it not true that his arguments are weak, that he is constantly being trapped in logical fallacies, and that he is the subject of the other characters' condescending wit? All silent. And is it not true, he presses on, that Salviati, the Copernican, is portrayed as a man of immense intelligence, of sharp wit, and of unassailable logic? Is it not true that in every single debate in this book, Salviati is the clear and undeniable victor? He does not wait for an answer, flips to the end of your book. Let us look at your conclusion. After hundreds of pages in which the Copernican theory has been overwhelmingly proven, you have Simplicio make one final argument. He states that God, in his infinite omnipotence, could have created the universe in any way he chose, and that it is therefore presumptuous for man to claim he has discovered the true way it works. This is a fine, pious, theological argument. But it is an argument you have placed in the mouth of a character you have spent the entire book establishing as a simpleton. Is that not so? You try to argue, to explain the literary conventions of the dialogue form, but your words are useless. They are not interested in a literary discussion. They're conducting a criminal prosecution, and your own book is the star witness against you. You try to shift the ground. But fathers, the evidence of the heavens themselves. The moons I have discovered orbiting Jupiter, which prove that not all celestial bodies circle the earth. ... The inquisitor holds up his hand, stopping you. Signor Galilei, he says, his voice losing its gentle, probing quality and becoming hard as iron. We are not here to debate astronomy, as the heavens will do as God commands them. We are here to determine whether you have violated a formal, sacred injunction of the Holy Office. The scientific truth or falsehood of the Copernican theory is of no consequence in this room. The only truth that matters here is the truth of your obedience to the Church. In that moment, you understand the utter futility of your position. You have come to a battle of ideas armed with the powerful new weapons of observation, of mathematics, of reason. But your opponents are not fighting on that battlefield. They are fighting on the ancient, unassailable ground of theological authority and legal precedent. Your telescope is useless against their ledgers. The phases of Venus are no defense against a 17-year-old piece of paper. Your crime is not your science. Your crime is your disobedience. The second interrogation leaves you in a state of profound intellectual and spiritual exhaustion. We're returned to your quiet, comfortable apartment within the Holy Office, but it is a prison of the mind. You spend your days pacing the floor, the Inquisitor's final, damning words echoing in your head. The only truth that matters here is the truth of your obedience. You are a man who has dedicated his entire life to the pursuit of a different kind of truth, truth that is written in the language of mathematics, a truth that can be demonstrated through observation and evidence. But you now understand that in this place, your kind of truth has no value. It is a foreign currency that is not accepted here. You are an old and sick man, far from your home and your friends. The initial pride and defiance you felt have been worn away by the slow, grinding machinery of the Inquisition, by the long weeks of confinement, and by the cold, unshakable certainty of your judges. You realize you cannot win. The goal is no longer to be proven right. The goal is simply to survive, to receive the most lenient sentence possible, and to be allowed to live out your few remaining years in peace. Through the quiet back-channel advice of the Tuscan ambassador, you are made to understand that the Pope's anger is the primary engine of this trial. Your only hope is to show contrition, to throw yourself upon the mercy of the court. And so, you devise a new, desperate strategy. Will confess. When you are called for your third interrogation, weeks later, you are a changed man. The inquisitors begin with their usual patient questioning, but this time you stop them. For a time you begin, your voice weary, your words carefully chosen. I have been considering the arguments in my book, and upon rereading it, I find that I made the case for the false Copernican opinion far stronger than I should have. You begin a strange rambling and deeply humiliating confession. You do not confess to being a heretic. You do not confess to believing in the Copernican system. You confess to a sin of pride, of intellectual vanity. My error, you say, was one of vainglorious ambition and of pure ignorance and inadvertence. You tell them that in your desire to appear clever, to show off your skill in debate, you became carried away. You made the arguments of the Copernican side so powerful and so persuasive that a simple reader, you admit, might be led to believe that you yourself held this condemned opinion to be true. You confess not to the crime of heresy, but to the writer's sin of having been too convincing. You offer to write a new chapter for your book, a chapter in which you will definitively refute the Copernican arguments. It is a clever, if pathetic, attempt to find a middle ground. You are offering them a confession, as they have demanded, but it is a confession to a lesser intellectual crime. It is the last desperate gambit of a proud man trying to save both his life and some small, tattered shred of his intellectual honor. The inquisitors listen in a cold, silent impassivity. They are not impressed. This is not the full, heartfelt, and total submission they require. It is a lawyer's trick, an attempt to bargain. The audience ends without a clear resolution. The court is now in a deadlock. You have confessed, but not to the right thing. They have a case against you for disobedience, but they have not yet broken your will completely. The Pope, in Rome, is growing ever more impatient. He demands a final, definitive conclusion. You are called one last time for your fourth and final interrogation. The atmosphere in the room is different now. The pretense of a theological debate is gone. This is a simple, final, legal procedure. The Inquisitor Maculani asks you a single, direct, and formal question. A question he is required by law to ask before concluding the trial. Answer with the truth, he says, his voice flat and official. Do you hold, or have you held, since the decree of 1616, the opinion that the sun is the center of the universe, and that the earth is not the center and moves? This is the final trap. There is no room for cleverness here, no space for literary excuses or partial confessions. It is a simple question of yes or no. You are standing on the edge of a cliff. You can hold to the truth you have seen with your own eyes through your telescope, and in doing so, you will be branded an unrepentant heretic, a man to be handed over to the fire. Or you can speak the lie, the one simple and total lie they have been demanding all along. You look at the cold, expectant faces of your judges. You think of your old sick body. You think of the stories of the torture chamber. The great fighting spirit of Galileo Galilei finally completely breaks. I do not hold and have not held this opinion of Copernicus. You say, your voice a low, defeated whisper, since the command was given to me that I must abandon it. It is a lie, a profound, soul-shattering lie. You have just looked your judges in the eye and denied the evidence of your own senses, the conclusions of your own magnificent mind. You have denied the very truth for which you have fought your entire life. The Inquisitor gives a small, almost imperceptible nod. He has what he needs. The scribe's pen scratches across the page, recording your final, total submission. The long, intellectual war is over, and you have lost. Your final whispered lie is a turning point. You have denied the truth that has been the sun of your own intellectual universe. The Inquisitors have their victory on paper. The scribe's quill scratches out the final sentence of your testimony, a formal record of your capitulation. The audience is over. You are led in a state of profound, hollowed-out shame back to your apartments. You have given them what they wanted. You have obeyed. Surely now this ordeal must be over. Surely now they will show you the mercy they have spoken of so often. You spend the next days in a state of anxious, exhausted hope, waiting for the news of a lenient sentence, for the permission to return to your home in Florence, to live out your last years in a quiet, if shamed, peace. But the news that filters back to you through the whispers of the Tuscan ambassador is not of mercy. It is of a cold and unrelenting anger. The transcripts of your interrogations have been sent to the Pope Urban VIII, and the Pope is not satisfied. Your first partial confession to the sin of vainglorious ambition has been seen not as an act of contrition, but as an act of immense, unrepentant pride. And your final, total denial of ever having held the Copernican belief is seen for what it is, a lie, a final, desperate attempt to outwit the court. The Pope, who still feels the sting of your book's perceived insult, is not interested in your clever, legalistic submissions. He wants you broken. He wants a full and public humiliation. He sends his orders back to the Holy Office. The trial is to proceed to a formal judgment and a sentence. But first, the Inquisitors must make one final effort to ascertain your true intent. They must be certain that you are not still hiding a heretical heart behind your false words. And for this, the ancient and terrible procedures of the Inquisition have a final prescribed step. The Pope has authorized the use of territio reles. You are to be formally threatened with torture. In the middle of June, you are summoned once more. You are now an old man, utterly exhausted by the months of psychological warfare, your health in a fragile state. You are led once again to the interrogation chamber. The mood is different. There is no pretense of a debate or a discussion. This is a final, formal, legal act. The Commissary General Maculani reads from a prepared decree. He states that, given the inconsistencies in your testimony, the Holy Office is now required by law to put you to the question. to use physical torment to ensure that the full and complete truth has been extracted from you. He pauses and looks at you, his face as impassive as ever. Before we proceed, he says, the Holy Office in its mercy gives you one last chance. Do you have anything more to confess? You have nothing left to give? You have already told the lie they demanded. You are a hollowed-out man. I have nothing more to say, you whisper. So be it, the Inquisitor says. You are then taken from the room. Your heart is a cold stone of terror. You are led down a corridor to a door you have never seen before. It is the door to the torture chamber. You are made to stand at this threshold. The door is opened, and you are shown the instruments within, the ropes, the rack, the tools of agony. You are not touched. You are not bound. You are simply made to look, to contemplate the physical reality of the pain that awaits you if you do not give them what they want. After a few long, silent moments of this psychological intimidation, you are brought back before the Inquisitor. Are you now ready to tell the truth? He asks. And what truth is there left to tell? You have already given them the lie they required. Oh, they are demanding. Some deeper, more authentic confession of your heretical soul, a confession they are willing to tear from your body if necessary. You are a man of 70 years. You are sick, you are weak, and you are utterly, completely broken. The fight is gone. I am here to obey, you say. Your voice a dead, empty thing. It is enough. They have what they need. They do not need to actually torture you. They simply need the official record to state that you were threatened with torture and that, under that threat, you did not change your testimony. Your previous submission now has the legal weight of having been confirmed under the duress of torture. The inquest is over. The long, slow, and agonizing process of stripping you of your pride, of your intellectual defenses, of your very will to fight, is complete. You have been proven disobedient. You have confessed. You have been formally threatened with torture. The great bureaucratic machine has all the components it needs to proceed to its final, public act of condemnation and humiliation. Your final, weary submission in the face of the threat of torture is all the Inquisitors need. The long, quiet, and psychologically grueling inquest is over. You have been deemed disobedient. Your book has been condemned. You have been officially found vehemently suspect of heresy. All that remains now is the final, public spectacle of your punishment and your penitence. You are left in your confinement for 2 more days, a quiet, empty period in which to contemplate the totality of your defeat. Then, on the morning of June 22nd, 1633, the guards come for you. It is the day of your judgment. You are led once more to the Dominican convent of Santa Maria Sopra Minerva. This time, you are taken to the Great Hall, a vast vaulted chamber. The mood is not one of investigation, but of immense, solemn, and triumphant authority. On a high platform at the front of the hall sit 10 of the cardinals of the Inquisition. Dressed in their magnificent blood-red robes, their faces as stern and as impassive as stone idols. They are the princes of the Church, and they are here to sit in judgment upon you. The hall is filled with other high-ranking officials and prelates of the Holy Office. You are led to the center of the room, and you are ordered to kneel. You are an old man of 70, your knees aching with arthritis, and you slowly, painfully lower yourself onto the cold stone floor before your accusers. An official stands, and in a loud, clear, and monotonous voice, he begins to read the formal sentence of the Holy Office. The document is long and mercilessly detailed. It recounts the entire history of your case, beginning with the first warnings in 1616. It details all the theological and legal errors found in your dialogue. It speaks of your false and heretical belief that the sun is the center of the universe, and of your cunning and deceitful attempt to disobey the commands of the Church. The reading of your crimes seems to go on forever. Finally, the official reaches the final judgment. Sentence and declare, he reads, his voice echoing in the silent hall. Said Galileo, by reason of the matters brought forth in trial, and by you confessed as above, have rendered yourself in the judgment of this holy office vehemently suspect of heresy. He continues, listing your punishments. Your book, the dialogue, is to be prohibited and placed on the Church's index of forbidden books. You are condemned to formal imprisonment in a jail of the Holy Office, for a term to be decided at their pleasure. And as a salutary penance, you are ordered to recite the 7 penitential psalms once a week for the next 3 years. The sentence is read, your life's work has been banned. Your freedom has been taken from you. But the humiliation is not yet complete. A second official now steps forward. He hands you a sheet of parchment. It is your abjuration, a full and detailed confession and recantation, written for you by the inquisitors. You are ordered to read it aloud, on your knees, before the entire assembly. You take the document. Your hands are trembling. You look at the words on the page, the words that have been chosen to destroy you. And with a voice that is the dry, empty whisper of a broken man, you begin to read. I, Galileo, son of the late Vincenzo Galilei, Florentine, aged 70 years, arraigned personally before this tribunal and kneeling before you, most eminent and reverend Lord Cardinals, Inquisitors General against heretical depravity throughout the entire Christian Commonwealth, ... You read the words of your own condemnation. You are forced to state that you have been judged suspect of heresy, namely, of having held and believed that the sun is the center of the world and immovable, and that the earth is not the center and moves. You continue, your voice a dead monotone. Therefore, desiring to remove from the minds of your eminences and of all faithful Christians this vehement suspicion justly conceived against me, with sincere heart and unfeigned faith, I abjure, curse, detest the aforesaid errors and heresies. It is the most profound and terrible moment of your life. You, a man who has seen the truth of the heavens with your own eyes, are now on your knees, publicly, formally, and for all of history, cursing that truth. Don't. You are calling the elegant, mathematical dance of the planets an error and a heresy. You are renouncing the very foundation of your scientific soul. You read on to the end of the humiliating text. Double quotes, ... and I swear that in the future I will never again say or assert, verbally or in writing, anything that might cause a similar suspicion toward me. When you have finished reading, the parchment is placed on a table before you. You are given a quill pen, and as the 10 cardinal inquisitors look down upon you, you sign your name to the document of your own eternal shame. The ceremony is over. The great scientist has been humbled. The truth has been silenced by the authority of the Church. You have saved your frail old body from the fire, but you have done so at the cost of your voice, your honor, and your name. The ordeal of your trial is complete. Now the long, quiet ordeal of your punishment is about to begin. Your signature on the document of your own humiliation is the final act of the public drama. The great ceremony in the hall of Santa Maria sopra Minerva is over. You are led away, a man who has been publicly broken. But the sentence of formal imprisonment is not what it seems. Pope Urban VIII, having achieved his goal of your public submission, now makes a show of his own mercy. You are not thrown into the dungeons of the Holy Office. Your sentence is immediately commuted. First, you are sent to the magnificent Villa Medici, the home of the Tuscan ambassador in Rome. After a few days there, you are transferred to the custody of your friend and admirer, the Archbishop of Siena. You spend 5 months in his beautiful palace, a guest in all but name, but a prisoner nonetheless, forbidden to leave, your every letter read by the local inquisitor. Finally, after nearly a year since you first left your home, you are granted your final destination. You are allowed to return to your own villa in Arcetri, in the hills overlooking Florence. But you do not return as a free man. You are to serve your sentence of life imprisonment there. You are a prisoner in your own home for the rest of your life. This is the beginning of the long silence. Your life, once a vibrant one of teaching, of debating, of corresponding with the greatest minds in Europe, is now a small, quiet, and carefully circumscribed existence. You are forbidden from receiving visitors without the express permission of the Inquisition. You are forbidden from ever publishing another book, or from even discussing the forbidden Copernican theory. You are a man under a permanent gag order. It is in the years that follow your condemnation that the most famous story about you is born. The legend is that as you rose from your knees after your abjuration, you stamped your foot on the ground and muttered defiantly to yourself, "Epirsy move, and yet it moves." It is a wonderful, dramatic story of defiance. But it is almost certainly not true. It is a story that was invented more than a century after your death. To have said such a thing in that room, in the presence of the cardinal inquisitors, would have been an act of suicidal madness, an invitation to the torture chamber and the stake. But the legend endures, because it speaks to a deeper truth. You may have been forced to deny the motion of the earth with your lips, but you and the inquisitors and the entire world knew that you had not denied it in your mind. The truth of the universe does not depend on the decrees of a papal court. You have been silenced, but the earth continues to move. The Inquisition intended your house arrest to be the final, quiet chapter of your life, a slow fading into an obscure and shamed irrelevance. They believed they had silenced the most dangerous voice in Christendom. They were wrong. Barred from studying the heavens, you turn your magnificent, restless mind to a different subject, the laws of motion on earth. In the quiet, forced solitude of your villa, you begin your last and perhaps your greatest work. You go back to your old experiments with rolling balls down inclined planes, with pendulums, and with the nature of falling objects. You cannot publish this work in Italy, but you are still Galileo Galilei. You have friends and admirers throughout Europe. In a final great act of intellectual defiance, you write your new book in secret. The manuscript, titled Discourses and Mathematical Demonstrations Relating to Two New Sciences, is painstakingly copied by hand. It is then smuggled, page by page, out of your villa, out of Florence, over the Alps, and finally to a publisher in the free and Protestant city of Leiden in Holland. In 1638, the book is published. It is a masterpiece. It lays the foundations for the modern science of mechanics, the very science that Isaac Newton would later build upon to create his theory of universal gravitation. The inquisitors had managed to imprison your body, but they had failed utterly to imprison your mind. The final years of your life are a slow descent into a literal as well as a figurative darkness. Your eyesight, which has been failing for years, finally gives way completely. You, the man who saw farther than any other human being in history, the man who discovered mountains on the moon and the stars of the Milky Way, are now totally blind. It is a final, tragic irony. You live out your last years in your villa, a blind old man, a prisoner in his own home, attended by his last loyal students. You can no longer see the stars, but you continue to contemplate their movements, your mind a universe of its own. Your long, bitter, and brilliant ordeal is finally drawing to a close. Your abjuration is a public and resounding success for the Holy Office. But your complete submission and the fragile state of your health have earned you a final, grudging concession from the Pope. The sentence of formal imprisonment is to be served not in a monastic cell, but under strict house arrest in your own villa at Arcatry for the remainder of your life. You return to your home not as a free man, but as a famous and disgraced prisoner. Your villa, once a place of vibrant intellectual exchange, of students and visiting dignitaries, now becomes a quiet, sun-drenched prison. You are forbidden to leave. You are forbidden to have visitors without the express permission of the local inquisitor. Your mail is opened and read. The long silence imposed by the church now begins in earnest. For you, the ordeal enters a new, quieter, but no less painful phase. The public humiliation is over, but the private shame is a constant companion. You are a man who has been forced to publicly curse the very truth he has dedicated his life to discovering. It is a wound to your soul that will never truly heal. But there is another, more immediate and more devastating blow to come. In the spring of 1634, less than a year after your return to Arcetri, your beloved eldest daughter, Virginia, who, as a nun, had taken the name Sister Maria Celeste, falls gravely ill, for she has been your greatest comfort throughout your ordeal, her steady stream of loving, its prayerful letters your only solace during the dark months in Rome. Now she dies of a sudden fever. Her death is the single greatest sorrow of your life. It is a loss so profound that for a time you lose all interest in your work, in the stars, in life itself. You are an old, disgraced, and now deeply grieving man, a prisoner in your own home, with only the cold, silent company of the celestial truths you are forbidden to speak of. But the mind of Galileo Galilei cannot be imprisoned forever. Slowly, painstakingly, you begin to work again. You are forbidden from writing about the movement of the heavens. So you turn your gaze from the cosmos to the earth. You begin to secretly work on your final, and in many ways, your greatest masterpiece. You return to your early experiments on motion, on the strength of materials, on the very principles that govern the physical world. The work is difficult. Your eyesight, which has been failing for years, is now rapidly deteriorating. You can no longer read your own notes or see the fine lines of your own diagrams. But your mind is as sharp as ever. You begin to dictate your thoughts, your equations, your conclusions to your last loyal students who are permitted to visit you. You spend your days in a world of pure thought, your mind a laboratory. You dictate the book that will become the foundation of modern physics, the discourses and mathematical demonstrations relating to two new sciences. It is a final, brilliant, and utterly defiant act of your scientific spirit. The manuscript is completed in secret, smuggled page by page out of your villa, and sent across the Alps to be published in Holland, far from the reach of the Inquisition. The book is a triumph, but it is a triumph you will never see. In 1638, just as your great work is being published, the final, tragic irony of your life descends. You go completely and irreversibly blind. The man who built a telescope to show humanity the face of the heavens can no longer see the face of his own daughter or the light of his own Tuscan sun. This universe you dictate in a letter, which I have extended 100 and 1,000 times beyond the limits of all past ages, is now shrunken for me to the narrow space of my own body. The abjuration has reached its final, terrible conclusion. The Church, which could not make you unknow the truth, has lived to see that truth silenced by the simple, physical failure of your own eyes. You are now truly and completely alone in a long and final silence, a prisoner in a world of absolute and perpetual darkness. The final years of your life are spent in a world of darkness, a world without the sun, the moon, or the stars that you once knew so intimately. You are old, you are blind, and you are a prisoner in your own home. The great, brilliant, and often arrogant fire of your personality has been banked, leaving behind the quiet, glowing embers of a mind that cannot and will not stop working. You are not entirely alone. You are attended by your last and most devoted student, a young man named Vincenzo Viviani. He is your eyes, your hands, and your scribe. Your daily routine is now one of quiet, dictated thought. You sit in a chair in your study, your sightless eyes turned towards the window and the warm Tuscan sun you can no longer see, and you continue your explorations. You can no longer build telescopes, but you can design them, dictating improvements to Viviani. You can no longer conduct experiments, but you can revisit them in your perfect mathematical memory, refining your conclusions, dictating your final thoughts on the nature of motion, of force, of the very fabric of the physical world. Your body is a prison, but your mind remains the freest and most powerful instrument in all of Europe. You live in this quiet, productive darkness for several more years, but your body, which you have pushed so hard for nearly 8 decades, is finally beginning to fail. In the winter of 1642, you are struck by a fever and a palpitation of the heart. You take to your bed, and you know, with the calm certainty of a man of science, that your final journey is about to begin. On the 8th of January, surrounded by your few loyal students, you die quietly in your own bed. You are 77 years old. The Grand Duke of Tuscany, your lifelong patron, wishes to honor you. He plans a grand public funeral and a magnificent marble tomb for you in the main body of the Basilica of Santa Croce, the resting place of Florence's greatest sons, alongside Michelangelo himself. But the vengeance of the Pope, Urban VIII, extends beyond the grave. From Rome, the order comes down from the Holy Office. There is to be no public funeral. There is to be no honorable tomb. You Galileo Galilei died as a man vehemently suspect of heresy, a penitent under house arrest. You are not to be celebrated. And so, your burial is a quiet, hurried, and almost secret affair. Your body is taken at night to the basilica, but you are not laid to rest in the main nave. You are buried in a small unmarked grave in a side chapel, a humble and obscure corner of the great church. Final, posthumous act of humiliation from the institution you had both served and defied. The great, turbulent, and brilliant life of Galileo has ended in a quiet, ignominious whisper. The long silence has truly begun. But a voice as powerful as yours cannot be silenced by a prison or by a grave. While your body lies in its forgotten corner, your ideas are just beginning their great conquest of the world. Your final great book, The Two New Sciences, which was smuggled out of this very villa, has been published in Protestant Holland, far from the reach of the Inquisition. It spreads like wildfire through the intellectual communities of Europe. In Paris, in London, in Amsterdam, the greatest minds of the age read your work, and they recognize it for what it is: the beginning of a new era. Your mathematical descriptions of motion, of acceleration, of the strength of materials, have laid a new and unshakable foundation for the science of physics. The world of Aristotle, the world of ancient philosophical authority that the Church had fought so hard to protect, is now truly and irreversibly dead. You have provided the tools, the language, and the methodology for a new generation of scientists to build a new universe. And in a final, beautiful, and almost poetic coincidence of history, on that very same year of 1642, as your body is being laid to rest in its humble, unmarked grave in Italy, a child is born in a small, unassuming village in England. He is a quiet, introverted, and prodigiously intelligent boy. His name is Isaac Newton. He will one day pick up the work that you were forced to abandon, and he will build upon your new sciences of motion to create a system of the world that will finally and for all time prove the truth for which you were condemned. The torch has been passed. Your personal ordeal is over. But the great scientific revolution that you began is about to find its most powerful and unassailable voice. For the next several decades, your body lies in its humble, unmarked grave, and your name is a forbidden subject in the universities and academies of Catholic Italy. The long silence imposed by the Inquisition seems to be a success. But the ideas of a mind like yours, once they have been set loose upon the world, cannot be so isolely contained. Across the Alps, in the Protestant nations of the North, your final smuggled book, The Two New Sciences, is being read, debated, and celebrated as a foundational text. The seeds you planted in the quiet of your house arrest have been carried on the wind, and they are now beginning to take root in the fertile minds of a new generation of natural philosophers. Your work on the laws of motion, on the behavior of falling bodies, and on the mathematical principles of the physical world becomes the common language of this new, emerging science. The ultimate vindication of your life's work comes from the quiet, unassuming English village where Isaac Newton was born in the year of your death. Newton, a man of almost superhuman intellectual power, takes up the questions that you were forced to abandon. He inherits your scientific method, the reliance on experiment, observation, and the language of mathematics. Indeed, Newton himself would later say, if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants, and you, Galileo, were the greatest and broadest of those shoulders. In 1687, 45 years after your death, Newton publishes his own masterpiece, the Philosophia Naturalis Principia Mathematica. It is a book that will change the world forever. In its dense, complex, and beautiful pages, Newton lays out his 3 laws of motion and his theory of universal gravitation. In a calm narrative style, the book explains the why behind the what you had observed. You had shown with your telescope that the moons of Jupiter orbited their planet, and you had argued that the Earth itself orbited the Sun, but you could not explain the force that held them in their paths. Newton, using the very principles of mechanics that you developed in your final book, provides the answer. He demonstrates that the same simple, universal force that causes an apple to fall from a tree to the ground is the very same force that holds the moon in its orbit around the Earth, and that holds the Earth and all the other planets in their orbits around the sun. It is the final, irrefutable, and devastatingly elegant proof of the Copernican system for which you were condemned. The universe, Newton shows, is not a place of divine caprice and theological mystery. It is a great, magnificent, and predictable clockwork, a system governed by a handful of simple mathematical laws that are accessible to the human mind. With the publication of the Principia, the scientific war is over. Your vindication is absolute and complete. The geocentric universe of Ptolemy and Aristotle, the universe that the Church fought so desperately to protect, is now a dead idea, a historical curiosity. The universe is, and has always been, the one you saw through your telescope. While your ideas are conquering the intellectual world, the Church that condemned you remains in a state of stubborn, awkward silence. Your dialogue remains on the index of forbidden books. Your name is still that of a condemned heretic. By the early 18th century, the situation has become a quiet embarrassment for the Church. The heliocentric model is being taught in every university in Protestant Europe, and even in many Catholic ones, albeit as a mathematical hypothesis. The Church's condemnation of you is no longer seen as an act of pious faith, but as a fearful and reactionary rejection of the modern world. The long silence of your personal ordeal has been replaced by a new and even longer silence from the institution that broke you. But the truth of the universe does not require the Church's approval. It simply is. Your scientific legacy is now secure. But the final act of your personal story, the story of your body and your name, is still waiting to be written. While your scientific legacy conquers the intellectual landscape of Europe, your physical body lies for nearly a century in its small, forgotten grave in the side chapel of Santa Croce. Your name is still officially that of a condemned heretic, a man denied the honor of a proper burial. But the long arc of history, like the arc of the planets you studied, bends slowly but inevitably towards the truth. While your scientific legacy conquers the intellectual landscape of Europe, your physical body lies for nearly a century in its small, forgotten grave in the side chapel of Santa Croce. Your name is still officially that of a condemned heretic, a man denied the honor of a proper burial. But the long arc of history, like the arc of the planets you studied, bends slowly but inevitably towards the truth. By the early 18th century, the intellectual climate has changed completely. The age of enlightenment is in full swing. You are no longer seen as a disgraced heretic, but as a martyr to the cause of reason. A heroic figure who stood up to the forces of dogma and superstition. The fact that Florence's greatest scientific mind lies in an unmarked grave becomes a source of civic and intellectual embarrassment. Finally, in 1737, nearly a century after your death, the Church, under a more liberal pope, quietly grants permission for your body to be moved. Your remains are exhumed with great and solemn ceremony. You are to be given the honorable burial that the Grand Duke had always wanted for you. Your body is reinterred in a magnificent marble tomb, a grand and heroic monument erected in the main body of the Basilica of Santa Croce. Your final resting place is directly opposite the tomb of the other great genius of Florence, Michelangelo. The man who was condemned as a heretic is now officially and permanently enshrined as one. Of the great heroes of Italy and of the world, the long silence surrounding your name is beginning to break. Still, The process is agonizingly slow. The church, as an institution, moves with the slowness of a glacier. Why, for another 100 years, your most famous work, the Dialogue, remains on the index of forbidden books. It is not until the year 1835, more than 2 centuries after your trial, that it is finally, quietly, and without any fanfare, removed from the list. The church has not admitted its error, but it has, in its own slow, bureaucratic way, ceased to condemn your truth. The final act of your long and complicated story takes place in the full, bright light of the 20th century. In 1979, Pope John Paul II, a man deeply interested in the relationship between faith and science, establishes a commission to conduct a full and honest re-examination of the entire Galileo affair. The Church is, at last, ready to look its own history in the eye. The commission works for more than a decade, studying the ancient documents from the trial, the theological arguments, and the scientific context. Finally, in 1992, 359 years after you knelt in the hall of Santa Maria sopra Minerva, the Pope delivers a formal address. In this address, he officially and publicly acknowledges the Church's error. He speaks of the tragic mutual incomprehension that marked the affair. He admits that the theologians who condemned you were unable to separate their faith from an ancient and outdated cosmology. He speaks of you, Galileo, as a man of sincere faith, a man who believed that the book of nature and the book of Scripture were both written by the same divine hand, and could not therefore contradict each other. He speaks of the great suffering that was inflicted upon you. It is a full, if long overdue, apology. The long, slow, and painful process of your vindication is now, at last, complete. Your story, which began with a revolutionary gaze through a telescope, which passed through the dark, silent chambers of the Inquisition and the long, quiet years of house arrest, has now come to its final, peaceful conclusion. You are no longer a heretic. You are a hero of science, a pioneer of human thought, and a testament to the enduring power of a truth that, though it may be silenced for a time, cannot be denied forever. Your ordeal is over, and your long silence has been replaced by an eternal and honored place in the history of human discovery. Our journey with Galileo, the accused heretic, is now at an end. We have felt the weight of the summons, heard the cold, legalistic questions of the inquisitors, and witnessed the public humiliation of a great mind forced to deny the truth. It was a world where obedience was valued above evidence, where the language of theology could silence the language of mathematics, and where the truth, though cursed and denied, could not ultimately be stopped. That world of secret archives, of scarlet robes, and of forced recantations has now faded away, leaving only the quiet of the present moment. The scientist's long and bitter ordeal is over, ... and now so is yours. There is nothing left to do but to rest, to let go of the day, and to drift into the deep and peaceful sleep that you deserve. Rest now. Sleep well.